Jamaica put in once upon a foreign. We are messengers. We are not just, we just go, they just don't go, they go sing. We were sent by the Almighty to come and do this work. If I wasn't sent by the Almighty, I couldn't be around still doing things after so many years in the business. So when you're sent, you have to deliver the message. If you don't deliver the message, then you're going to be in problem. It's our work, we have to do it. You know what I mean? And have to enlighten and open the eyes of the people to what is going on around them. You know what I mean? Because we've been doing it for years. Like the Rastaman tell the people a long time, do not eat from plastic. Do not eat certain kind of food because it's what is killing us. Every next person die, nowadays is cancer. How can so many people be dying by cancer? It's in the water and it's in the food. But if you say this, you have been censored by the big major labels because they're not going to sign it because our message is not conducive to their society or their economical what would say, project. So, you know what I mean? That's where I go. But
Coco tea still, you know. Coco tea still. Did you know that Mexico was part, we don't want to say America was part of Mexico and Mexico was a part of America, but Mexico was America too. Or America was Mexico too. In parts of Texas and all these places was Mexico. And as usual, white people come thief the land. You know, that is why them talk Spanish, because the Spaniards, them did it. And now we say Mexicans are aliens. Aliens. And now we hear that them want to make Canada aliens are the citizens of America. That's what they call colonialism. That is how colonialism happening now. For those of us who don't know how people become slaves to another country, or how another country colonize other countries. What is happening now between Canada and America, or I should say, between Trump and Canada, is directly related to colonialism. Real like, wow, dirty laundry in the country, can't trust Uncle Sam. Those of you who don't know the phrase of Uncle Sam, I tell you, the place is downside up, upside down, sideways, crossways. I don't know. The beginning of the end of the dominance of America. Them have a laugh at dominance, or else Trump wouldn't attack when attack against every country. The man against every country. Every country the man against. Believe you me. I don't hear him say nothing about West in the Caribbean yet, you know. We'll see what happen. But it's not easy. It's not easy. And things are pick up now more than ever before. Imagine a president of America come and tell you, say, him want annex the nearest country to him, Canada. Say, him go tariff them until them give in to him proposal that Canada must be the 51st state of America. What a thing. Canada. Canada, Rasta. No. The man I look worries. A trouble the man I look, man. Trouble the man I look. That is the thing. Him use the fentanyl argument for the way I do. But that is not what is his intention. Because I know, say, the amount of drugs will come through Canada is because it will come the other way from America to Canada. It's not the Canadian border. Maybe Mexico, yes, but not Canada. And furthermore, it is a truth and it is a fact that most of the drugs will come in America is American carried going there. America carried going there. But the man is hell-bent and creating problems, man. May I tell you? I wonder when he's going to reach down here. So, it's unfoldable. Yes.
Hey, me come to talk to Father God. Me not stay long. Me just come to talk to him for 5 minutes. I hang up. Now, Jesus, imagine, you take my favorite female artist, Whitney Houston. Jesus, you go back again. And you take my favorite male singer, Michael Jackson, when you say heal the world. Now, Jesus, you go again. You go as far as you take my favorite boxer, Muhammad Ali. So, God, Donald Trump is one of my favorite presidents. Where I went for.
Church and founded the Reformed or Calvinist Church. Henry VIII didn't like being denied this church. William Miller didn't like the Baptist Church and founded the Adventist. Ellen G. White really liked what William Miller said and founded the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Charles T. Russell didn't like the Adventist Church and founded Jehovah's Witnesses. Joseph Smith disliked the Methodist Church and founded the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. John Wesley disliked the Anglican Church and founded the Methodist Church. Some pastors didn't like the Methodist Church and founded the Pentecostal Church. Many did not like the Pentecostal Church and founded thousands of churches like Stop Suffering, Assemblies of God, Light of the World, etc. The evangelical movement came from the Baptist Church, while the different born-again movement came from the evangelical churches. The born-again faith emerged in the late 1930s from the U.S., and it gained popularity in the 1970s and 1980s, its golden age. There are now 35,000 different so-called Christian religions who claims their interpretation of the Bible is the right one. Martin Luther didn't like the Catholic.
Oh, yeah, we just realized it. Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Man, that's something else. Okay, so we want to talk about is that event you're having?
Yes, so it's the first time we're doing it. We're doing a Kingston Poetry Week. So it's an entire
Kingston
week.
Poetry Week. Why just Kingston? Why just Kingston?
You have to start somewhere, and I mean,
why couldn't start from Montego Bay?
Boy, become. I not have the guests to go. Me not have the guests to go there and back. But what I'm hoping, you start somewhere, and then people be like, "Yes," and somebody in a link that ask the same question when you ask, and them going to them own poetry week.
Me like I want them already. You don't start talking. I'm like, oh, you talk. Trust me.
Yeah, man.
All right. So how you come up with this now? How you come up with it?
Well, I actually started it last year unofficially. So I kept on seeing all of these different organizations putting on all of their little activities in silos. So UA Department of English over there doing a poetry clash. Then this other group called Off the Page Roots is doing a writing workshop, and somebody else. And I said, why we as poets, we're always scattered and we're not working together? Because everybody
hold on. Them have a poetry thing I go on for about 30 years now at the end of month.
Yeah, Poetry Society of Jamaica. That's one event.
But it's one event with a whole heap of different poets.
Yeah, I know, and I get it. But again, when you have other events, why are we all trying to promote our individual events on our own? I said, let's just put it all in one umbrella, put all of the poetry events on one poster, and everybody get to promote everything at one time. And I said, let me just
all of the poets, them?
All of the poets, individual poets, the poetry group.
I know poetry having a Jamaica,
I know, holy poet. But but we don't know about each other.
If you do it in Kingston now, the people them in a Mandeville are going to say, wait, how shall I keep one event at Kingston? I expect all of the poets them to come at Kingston, come take part tonight.
No, but I'm not expecting all of them. I expect some of the poets in Mandeville to pick up themselves and do something with themselves too. And actually, it's funny that you say Mandeville because the co-founder of my organization lives in Mandeville right now, and him drive a town all the time. Okay. But we're trying to build up more things. Yeah, I say you have to start somewhere. You can't do everything all at once.
You're a poet. I'm going to assume you're a poet.
Yes, I'm a poet.
You have published work?
Yeah, I self-published 2 albums.
Oh yeah, so I'm not have none of them.
Well, yeah, but I gotta make sure I deal with that after this.
How long ago you do them?
2014 and 2018.
I bring same one of them come give me.
Yeah, mama, I gotta bring it come, man. In a support you there come up.
So which part, who play it? Which station I play it?
I mean, it tends to be like Christian station, TBC Love 101.
Christian station.
NCU.
So we now want to play because we are not Christian, how it go?
You really love trouble, trouble your middle name, though.
No.
Anybody who conscious can listen to it and appreciate
then
it.
Then come on one Christian station have it?
No, I mean, I've been trying to get it out, but I mean, no, to be fair, RJR, I've done my pieces on RJR, I've done my pieces on Roots 96.
No, I'm talking about the music where you put out, the poetry where you put out on CD or whatsoever you put it out on. You can't come at each place individual every time you want your poetry be heard. You have to have that's why you put it on CD.
Yes, I have it on audio track. So I have an album, so you can read the words and you can listen to it at the same time. I don't want to read the word. I want to hear you. I want to hear you read your poetry. Yeah, man. All right. Well, I have your. When I use CD again, a QR code. You know these things are there. Scan the QR code for
that's
your
phone.
That's
why I get none of them. I read on radio.
Nobody don't use QR code. I don't think that nobody don't use this kind of technology.
All right. So we could go back to your poetry then now.
Yeah.
You have been publishing poetry and then you get so enthusiastic about it, you feel say you should have help other poets to come together to have a bar. Right?
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, all right, so I started Jaiku a little over a year ago. And the whole purpose is I want poetry to stop being treated as this kind of bastard outside child. Like when it comes to other art forms, everybody else see them in a certain light. You have professional actors. Anybody who watch Hollywood not gonna ask no question about that. You have professional singers. You have professional musicians. But if somebody talks about, let's say, somebody being a professional poet, I'm looking at it like him mad. I say, wait.
So that means them look at me like me mad.
Boy, I mean, if I know you, for the rest of we anyway, people look at you like you're mad. They say, no, what? That don't make no sense. And so I am just trying to say, listen, if there are people who just want poetry as a hobby, good for them, all the best. Yeah. But for anybody else who wants to build it up to a certain level and say, yeah, this is what I do, I want them to do that. So it's not even just for me or for people in my age group. Like my dream right now is in another 10, 15 years, when I have career day at school, at Norman Gardens, wherever, Excelsior, wherever, and people say, okay, what you want to be when you grow up? Somebody can say, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a policeman, and somebody can say, I want to be a poet, and nobody not going to ask a question. That's when that happens, I know I'm doing the job right. That is what I'm waiting on. Yeah.
Okay. 15 years,
that's why I started Jaiku.
It's about 15 years, you say?
I hope so. Okay. Hopefully less.
Okay. All right. Well, you have to publish more though and make yourself be heard more.
I'm working on it.
All right. So what is this thing going to do now? Tell me what you're going to do to help the poetry go move. What? That is starting.
All right. So with poetry, Kingston Poetry Week, we're trying to get more of the poets to come together and be in the same space to network, to be able to collaborate on other events, because we want to get poetry into as many spaces as possible. I feel like just from my own personal experience, and I mean, I've been writing poetry and I've been a poetry lover for the last 15 odd years. And I think that poetry, a lot of how you see it is normally in academic circles. Like people think of poetry as the nursery rhyme you read when you're a picnic, or you have to do the little CXC English literature poem. And then if you go beyond high school, then all right, you do your Masters of Fine Arts, and that's it. But you're not really seeing you don't see poetry being performed in mainstream spaces the way music and dances and songs and
Which way you live? Where you live?
I am, again, it's just from what I am seeing anyway.
No,
like
where
what
you
I
live?
am.
Where you live? Where you live?
Like if the way you have live music nights. Like I'm not seeing as many open mic poetry nights.
Now I ask you again, where you live?
I live in Kingston.
I'm going to ask you a question now. You ever hear about just a safari poetry thing we keep every year, 2 times a year?
Yeah, exactly.
You ever been to any of them?
Yes, I have. And
you ever been to this poem music festival in Portland?
I know, but again,
so what would I call that? What do you mean, often?
Again, those
it's
are...
a yearly event. The total
Yearly.
convention is a yearly event. And then
Yeah,
you have the
Calabash. Yeah, in St. Elizabeth.
Calabash
Again.
Literary Festival.
Yeah.
And then you have poets who appear on stage show where other artists depend. You have in Edna Manley School again, as I say, every last
monthly
month for 30 odd years.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I love those.
What do you call that?
I call all of those wonderful events, but then when I'm just saying the frequency, like when I sit down and think about 22 jerkies every week, Regency at Turnover is every week. Like, I'd love to see if like you could literally say every single week you have another poetry event, like that level of frequency, because those events are fantastic, but I want to see poetry in like everywhere, like the same way you can have almost any given weekend you can hear about multiple live music events and so on. I want to see that, like I want to see poetry everywhere. And so I've been really trying to see if I can get more poets, especially in my age group and going forward.
What is your age group?
I can't ask a lady her age on here.
Why not? You're afraid of your age?
When
you're young, when you say you don't have an old age, I mean, no old age, you don't want to be young. What is your age?
I'm in my 30s. I'm in my 30s. Yeah.
So why you can't ask a lady her age?
All right.
Oh, I ask about her foot, or her back, or foot back, so coffee. Eh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, poetry, watch out. You ever hear about Jean Breeze?
Jean Brenta Breeze, of course.
Oh, you ever read any of her poetry or listen to any of her work?
Yes, I actually was asked to recite one of her pieces at the Poetry Society of Jamaica Fellowship one time.
Natural?
Of course, I know Sherry. Poets forget pay, what do you mean?
Poetry forget pay, yes.
Yes, again, like I love it, and I love that there's so many, but I would just want to see more at a greater frequency. And just like what you said, a lot of these, like Poetry Society of Jamaica is in Kingston, and that happens every month. But then if somebody lives in Mandeville, outside of Yata Safari, twice a year, when else are they going to get poetry? You know what I mean? So, or if you go other parishes outside of this poem Agrafest once a year, and actually I'm actually holding it in Randy Williams this year. This is the first time I'm holding it in Kingston. So like that's the kind of thing I wanted to see more poets come together and leverage the power that we have together, because I feel like there's more that can be happening. Not that there isn't anything happening yet, but I just think that there could be more, and I'd want to see the full potential of poetry come to full bloom.
Okay. You want to see like a Sumfest with pure poet?
Oh, yeah.
Eh?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, sister, trust me, you have a long way to go.
You say I say 15 years?
No, I don't. So why you say 15 years, but you have a long way to go? I don't know. I don't know why you say 15. Maybe just plug that out of your foot back, but
yeah,
I don't know why you say 15
number.
years. You just say a number just so. Well, I still want to hear one of your poems, so you're going to say one for me now?
Okay, I can say one. This one is called Hope Gardens. Moonlight whispers of war. Flashed backs sheathe plans of ambush. Leaves drop on secret strategy covered with bamboo and courage. The brothers have assembled. Dawn will roar fire and spear of knives and grass. Blades drunk with anger and dew. Gunpowder clouds great house. Floods fields with screams that do not see skin. Justice fights. But hope plants language under tongue. Adope, Nyame, Obia, Dokono, Juka, Mbakra. Hope carves name into memory. Hope harvests beauty from cane row, bantu nuts, dreadlocks. Hope sews calico over curved hips and anoints curls and coils with castor oil. Massa can see torches burn, but him can't see roots grow. Can't see river water flow from belly bottom. Can't see mountains kiss sky till them turn blue. Bloom, jablum. Steam escape coffee estate faster than Corky run left him shut. Massa hear chain clank, but him can't hear record break. Can I hear how we turn metal to medal? How we change auction block to Olympic stock? When necks hang low with shackles but rise with ribbon and gold. Massa make whip fling but lip sting. Sting. Some fest. Sun splash. Lyrics stretch history over tenterhooks. Taught tender books from wombs awakened from silence. Massa make red blood flow from brown skin into brown dirt, but red dirt creates wealth that does not summon bones. Factory to foil, seed to soil, trees that stand taller than man the way time longer than rope. Hope marinate, cultivate, pollinate, irrigate, hope gardens. And hope sings one last Sankey that calls all of us home.
Thank you for writing a poem about me.
Okay, I could. We'll see.
I name Hope. My name is Hope. That's why my father named them. Give me that name, the Hope. So that's why I said thank you for writing a poem about me, because I hear Hope come up in it all.
All right, we'll see it there.
All right, look here. You're not going on Calabash. You're not going to be on Calabash.
I hope I can make it on the open mic.
Only on the open mic?
Yeah, hopefully.
So you should talk. You know who keep the festival?
Yeah, I know who. But I mean, the open mic, you have to join the line and make sure so you catch it there early.
No, man, I'm not talking about open mic. I'm not talking about other featured poets.
Well, I would love that, sir.
All right, so you know Justin Enzel?
I know the name.
All right, well, go search which part her phone number there and talk to her and tell her, say, MUTABARUKA asks her, thinks say you're a good poet, based off of what you just read a while ago, and you should have tried even get a 5-minute on it or a 3-minute. You going to do that?
Yes, I will. I'll try to get her number. If you have her number, that'll make it a bit easier.
Call me name. Call me name.
I'll call your name. Okay. Yeah. I'll call your name. Yes.
All right.
Muta is typically recommending Casey Garvey. I'm going to say it exactly like that.
Well, yes, you tell me you rehearsed where I was already.
Yeah, man. And I'm up out from early, you know. Right. You know, I can't just run in and things.
Me like the spirit. Trust me. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, man, do that and make here we go on. And if not, you get open mic. Open mic is just as good as the featured poet. Because, you know, the same people that listen, the open mic I listen to the other poet them. All right?
Yeah, man, of course.
All right. Yeah. Good thanks, yeah?
Yeah, man, thank you.
Yes. Okay. So, very high-spirited sister. Love that. Have a walk far away to go. I like that poem there. Yeah, it's not the usual straightforward poem. It make you have to sit and listen keenly to what you really getting at. Cause it going somewhere, you know, and to reach there. So, yeah, we give thanks for that. Okay, so before we go bring on the sister who was going to play this.
Observed annually as Agriculture Month.
Oh yes, let's love the farmers, yes.
White gold, as the British colonists called it, was the engine of the slave trade that brought millions of Africans to the Americas, beginning in the early 16th century. The history of every nation in the Caribbean, including Jamaica, has been impacted in one way or another by this crop. The Spanish were the first to import natives from Africa to be enslaved in the New World. Unable to find gold and other precious metals in Jamaica, the Spanish saw little use for the island and hardly resisted the invasion of British soldiers in 1655. Noting sugarcane's potential as income for the new settlements in the Americas, Europeans were already hooked on sugar coming from the eastern colonies. Spanish colonizers snipped seeds from the Columbus fields in Dominican Republic and planted them throughout their newly captured Caribbean colonies. By the mid-16th century, the Portuguese had brought some to Brazil, and soon after, the sweet cane made its way to British, Dutch, and French colonies, as well as to Jamaica, Barbados, and Haiti. It wasn't long, however, before the early settlers realized they were lacking sufficient manpower to plant, harvest, and process the back-breaking crop. The first slave ships arrived in 1505 and continued unabated for close to 400 years. Most came from Western Africa, where Portuguese colonies had already established trading outposts for ivory, pepper, and other goods. They also embarked on a trade in natives from Africa who they captured to be sold into slavery on sugar plantations in the New World. The human cargo was shipped across the Atlantic on a horrendous voyage known as the Middle Passage. Slavery was the key component in what historians called the Triangle Trade. Natives from Africa, mainly from the Fanti, Ashanti, Coromantee, Igbo, and Yoruba regions, were continually imprisoned and shipped over from Africa, then put to work on sugar plantations in appalling conditions. The slaves would have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning and work in the fields until sunset. A worker would yield up to 6 tons of raw crop a day. Slaves were burned, strangled, and otherwise tortured to terrorize them into obedience. Slave revolts punctuated the 18th and 19th centuries, and freedom was finally granted in 1838. A drop in sugar prices eventually led to a depression that resulted in an uprising in 1865. The following year, Jamaica became a crown colony and conditions improved. Introduction of banana crops reduced dependence on sugar. Independence from Britain was granted in 1962. The government became a democracy. Today, the island's economy relies mostly on agriculture and tourism industries. The sugar industry is the oldest continually operating industry in Jamaica, generating the 3rd largest foreign exchange after tourism and bauxite. And now, to end the Jamaican roots and culture, our famous black quotation is in the form of a poem. Sugar. Sugar, to my people, you have never really been sweet. You placed the shackles on our feet. To our lips, your taste was deceiving. For centuries, you left our ancestors grieving. Scars exposed from cruel lashes, Africans embroiled in freedom clashes. All because of the sugar cane. My people suffered so much pain. Even after freedom we gained, your legacy with us still remained. Haunted by your strange addiction, diabetes is now our common affliction. A chronic disease, my people, you've seized, as mindlessly our taste buds we tried to please. To break the cycle, we must learn that for your unnatural calories, we should never yearn. S. Surely you have caused us distress. U. Under your spell, our health is a mess. G. Great is our desire for you. A. Afflicted are many by the harm you do. R. Ritualistic lifestyle. Sugar in your coffee, sugar in your tea, sugar in your bloodstream. Sugar, are we free? For Jamaican Roots and Culture, I'm Pat Clark.
Interesting. So, we're upon a trajectory so now where we're going to really enlighten you with certain things. So, we're going to play this.
And discarded. Their journeys are about to diverge with outcomes that impact nothing less than the fate of the planet. But they weren't always this way. To understand where these bottles end up, we must first explore their origins. The heroes of our story were conceived in this oil refinery. The plastic in their bodies was formed by chemically bonding oil and gas molecules together to make monomers. In turn, These monomers were bonded into long polymer chains to make plastic in the form of millions of pellets. Those were melted at manufacturing plants and reformed in molds to create the resilient material that makes up the triplets' bodies. Machines filled the bottles with sweet, bubbly liquid, and they were then wrapped, shipped, bought, opened, consumed, and unceremoniously discarded. And now here they lie, poised at the edge of the unknown. Bottle 1, like hundreds of millions of tons of his plastic brethren, ends up in a landfill. This huge dump expands each day as more trash comes in and continues to take up space. As plastics sit there being compressed amongst layers of other junk, rainwater flows through the waste and absorbs the water-soluble compounds it contains, and some of those are highly toxic. Together, they create a harmful stew called leachate, which can move into groundwater, soil, and streams, poisoning ecosystems and harming wildlife. It can take Bottle 1 an agonizing 1,000 years to decompose. Bottle 2's journey is stranger, but unfortunately no happier. He floats on a trickle that reaches a stream that flows into a river, and a river that reaches the ocean. After months lost at sea, he's slowly drawn into a massive vortex where trash accumulates, a place known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Here, the ocean's currents have trapped millions of pieces of plastic debris. This is one of 5 plastic-filled gyres in the world's seas, places where the pollutants turn the water into a cloudy plastic soup. Some animals, like seabirds, get entangled in the mess. They and others mistake the brightly colored plastic bits for food. Plastic makes them feel full when they're not, so they starve to death and pass the toxins from the plastic up the food chain. For example, it's eaten by lanternfish. The lanternfish are eaten by squid. The squid are eaten by tuna. And the tuna are eaten by us. And most plastics don't biodegrade, which means they're destined to break down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics, which might rotate in the sea eternally. But Bottle 3 is spared the cruel purgatories of his brothers. A truck brings him to a plant where he and his companions are squeezed flat and compressed into a block. Okay, this sounds pretty bad too, but hang in there. It gets better. The blocks are shredded into tiny pieces, which are washed and melted so they become the raw materials that can be used again. As if by magic, Bottle 3 is now ready to be reborn as something completely new. For this bit of plastic with such humble origins, suddenly the sky is the limit.
Plastic bottle. We take it lightly, but it's not a simple thing. Say, if somebody in Africa, we could say Ghana or Senegal, drink something out of a plastic bottle and cark back the bottle and throw it into the sea, say, there's a possibility that that bottle could reach Jamaica. Yeah? That bottle could reach Jamaica. And then we tell you so that a lot of the hurricane them where you see come over here, so it starts in Africa. It starts from the west coast of Africa and reach over here, so. That wave, there's a certain wave that carries something. Anything that can float will move from Africa and reach way over here, so. So a lot of this thing, sometimes a lot of it is worldwide, not just national, but internationally possible. to somebody poison me from in Africa, they come over here, so. Or we are poison someone from here, so going to Cuba. Them kind of way there. Everything is connected. And we have to understand that. The water we are drink. The water we are drink, may I tell you. Listen.
Well, do you know what's in your drinking water? A shocking Associated Press investigation found various pharmaceuticals in the drinking supplies of at least 41 million Americans. Tainted water was found from New Jersey to California. NBC's Tom Costello is following the story.
Drinking water in Washington, D.C., they found 6 pharmaceuticals in our drinking water here. They include ibuprofen, caffeine, monosin, and about 3 or 4 others. In Philadelphia, they had 56 pharmaceuticals or byproducts. They range everything from epilepsy medication to mental health medicines to pharmaceuticals that really run the gamut. Here's the bottom line from the Associated Press on the study they did. It was, as you mentioned, a 5-month investigation involving the AP investigative team. 50 major cities in 50 states were looked at, and drugs were found in the water of 24 major cities. We're talking 41 million Americans here who drink that water. So what's in the water? Everything from acetaminophen and ibuprofen to mood stabilizers, antibiotics, angina, heart, as well as cholesterol drugs, and even sex hormones. The trouble here, Meek, is that the federal government does not test specifically for pharmaceuticals in the water. And in fact, there is no way to scrub water that is in a treatment plant for pharmaceuticals. And so now we have a situation where states and cities across the country are just starting to realize that there are the remnants of pharmaceuticals in the drinking water. All of that said, we should emphasize, we're talking here about parts per billion or trillion, really minute traces of pharmaceuticals that are in the water. And you say, well, how did it get there? Well, without getting too graphic, all of us who take medication for one thing or another, we don't absorb all of it. It is excreted. It gets into the sewage system, into the water treatment plants. And then because water treatment plants can't scrub it all out, if any of it, it just kind of dilutes on into the water system. Sometimes it gets into the water table, into wildlife, and then into reservoirs. It goes back into the water treatment site, into the water treatment plants.
I wonder if there's going to be, long-term study about effects of this down the road. And, but I guess initially, Tom, the question I'm sure you're asking today is there anything the government can do about this?
Yeah, and the EPA says it's concerned about it. But, we don't yet know, and water treatment utility plants say they are convinced that there is no immediate threat to anybody out there. That said, I did a story about 4 years ago in which we found a river in Colorado, and now we know there are many rivers, in which the fish were turning from male to female. And the reason was because there was too much estrogen in the water. The natural female hormone was literally turning male fish into female fish, and the thinking was that this is a canary in a coal mine. So now the question is, what's the impact on humans?
Yeah, that's the next one. Tom Costello on this story from Washington. Thank you very much.
Yes. Serious thing. Serious thing. Fish mutating from one kind of species to the next. What next? Robots. Them call them AI. Controlling human mind. The thing that hurt me most of all than anything is when I go up on my computer and I do something and the computer say, prove say I am a human. Prove say I'm not a robot. Imagine a robot that asks you, human being, for proof say he's not a robot. And that's where it reach. We take a break and come.
Planet. And while we've all had a hand in polluting our own world, there are certain countries that play a bigger part than others. To educate, inform, and maybe terrify our readers, we're pointing fingers at the 10 countries with the highest pollution emission. Number 10, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia makes up a measly 1.3% of the world's overall CO2 emissions. But it's a surprising number, considering the comparatively smaller population of just under 29 million. As with most countries, the burning of fossil fuels adds a great deal of pollution in the form of CO2. But there's more to Saudi Arabia's environmental pollution than that. The country's production of over 50 million tons of cement in 2013, a drastic jump from 26 million tons in 2005, as well as being one of the world's largest petroleum producers, has played a significant part in Saudi Arabia's role in world pollution emissions. Number 9. Indonesia. With a population nearing 250 million people, a heavy intake of electronic waste, and the routine burning of crops for the production of pulp, palm oil, and paper, Indonesia has quite the hand in the world's emission of pollutants. In regards to CO2 pollution alone, Indonesia accounts for 1.4% of total emissions at 510,000 kilotons emitted on an annual average. Things are so bad in Indonesia that it is known for being home of two of the world's most polluted areas, Kalimantan and Citarum River Basin. The persistence and hazard of the polluted haze from the frequent fires has even forced schools to close and infants to be evacuated from Indonesian cities. Number 8. Canada. Everybody loves Canada, right? Well, maybe not Mother Nature, so long as the country continues on its path of environmental destruction. Like Saudi Arabia, Canada's hand in CO2 emissions may seem small at 1.5% of the world's total, but the 550,000 kilotons is an emission per capita of 15.7%, considering the 35 million people it houses. According to Canada's own environmental conscience website, Environment Canada, major factors in the country's pollution output include an increase in localized industry and seemingly harmless things like road salt and chemicals used in dry cleaning clothing. In regards to prevention, Canada's National Pollutant Release Inventory offers a range of resources to avert further damage to the environment. Number 7. South Korea. Producing almost 2% of the world's CO2 emissions, South Korea definitely has environmental issues of its own it needs to square away. A portion of South Korea's overall air pollution does come from China in the form of arsenic-carrying dust, but that's not to say it's innocent. Coal-firing plants in the country are a major cause to the elevated carbon dioxide levels and creation of the lung-damaging ultrafine dust. In Seoul specifically, residents are advised to have protective masks on hand should a desert dust blow in and react with nitrogen and sulfur oxides emitted from power plants to form ultrafine dust. Number 6. Germany. It may be hard to refrain from making a Volkswagen joke about now, but truth be told, Germany's pollution problems stem a bit beyond car manufacturing, though it should be said that elevated diesel pollution has been observed, which has played a role in the country's 3% contribution to the world's pollution problem. One city in particular, Stuttgart, experiences spikes in nitrogen dioxide pollution that brings the annual level to over double what's considered an acceptable threshold. As with much of the rest of the world, Germany's CO2 contribution stems from fossil fuel consumption and waste emission, though the country has been seeing slight drops in CO2 levels, with a 4.3% drop of the country's total pollutants from 2013 to 2014. Number 5. Japan. The air quality in Japan has certainly taken some big hits throughout history, from Hiroshima to Fukushima, but a portion of the country's problem with pollutants comes from its own practices. Though Japan has some of the strictest regulations when it comes to sulfur dioxide and nitrogen emissions, the country houses 70% of the world's waste incinerators. With the incineration of waste, dioxins are emitted into the air, increasing the risks of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. An additional source that attributes to urban pollution includes Japan's use of nuclear energy, though the emission of greenhouse gases are generally smaller than common practices like coal burning. Despite the use of nuclear energy, Japan still accounts for 4% of the world's CO2 emissions. Number 4. Russia. 5% of the world's CO2 emissions comes from Russia. And when you get down to the nitty-gritty of how the government once viewed pollution, it's a surprise that level isn't much higher. At one time, Russian government officials believed that concern and regulation over pollutants were not worth considering if it meant a slowdown of economic advancement. By the 1990s, approximately 40% of Russian territory felt the effects of this mindset and was under moderately high environmental stress. Russia still faces inefficient energy usage and emission from fossil fuel use, though the Ministry of Fuels and Energy reports that carbon emission can be cut by 25% through upgraded equipment. Number 3. India. Approximately 6% of the world's CO2 emissions comes from India, but it also has one of the lowest emission per capita numbers due to its larger population of over 1.2 billion people. Regardless, the country faces an ecological crisis due to the burning of fossil fuels, more specifically diesel from vehicles and factories. It's a small role in the big picture, but Hindu cremation practices are also a hindrance to the environment, as the public burning of a deceased person releases carbon dioxide and mercury. Families also utilize cow manure and other agricultural waste as cooking fuel, meaning each household practicing these methods are contributing to the country's overall pollution. Number 2, United States. Making up about 15% of the world's total CO2 emissions, the United States produces over an approximate 5 million kilotons of CO2 a year. In 2014, the American Lung Association reported that around half of the United States' 300+ million population was living in areas of dangerously high air pollution levels. Beyond just CO2 emissions, warmer temperatures are causing an increase in ozone levels in cities like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and Las Vegas. What's causing the increase in air pollution in the states? Everything from overuse of fossil fuels to oil spills to pesticides have all played a part in crippling the country's environment. Number 1, China. China being at number 1 is probably not a huge surprise, but it's still shocking to know that nearly 30% of the entirety of the world's CO2 emissions, or twice that of the United States, comes from this country. With a population of over 1.3 billion people and cities almost completely covered in a hazardous smog, China is constantly facing an environmental crisis. So much so that it's believed that only 1% of the country's city population is breathing air considered safe by European Union standards. A reliance on coal burning for heat, an increase in industrial plant usage, and unfortunate weather patterns that don't allow for the escape of pollution have made parts of the country dangerous to live in. Were you surprised to see a certain country on this list? Do you have an idea for a future Top 10 video? Let us know in the comments section below. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and our website, top10archive.net.
Yes, I tell you. See, we're playing these things because we know say you're not going to hear it nowhere else. Yes, we're playing them because we know say it's very important that you know these things, that you can make decisions in your life for yourself. Because they're not making no decision for you again that have your interests at heart. Your interest is the last thing that is on them list, if it's on them list in the first place. So when we play these things, it's really generate a certain interest in self and see what you can do to help yourself, to prevent yourself from falling in the trap that them setting for you. Because we see so much young people are dead now that grandmothers is burying their grandchildren. And we're not talking about the car accident them. We're talking about the things them that young people are consumed nowadays and full up the hospital them. Young people is dying. That's why them I say no, them need more young people in the system, because them need workers that can facilitate them development. And it's the old people them is living too long. This is the continent. You take a break and come forward. We're going to feature the music of Coco. As you might have known by now, Coco passed away in Florida. We want to play music them. So from 12 to the end of the program, we're going to feature Coco. Okay, so we could continue the education, yeah, so, and the inward search for self with these clips that we have here. Listen to this.
The meat you are eating tannamase enzyme, or meat glue, which the meat industry uses to take meat scraps and glue them together to form a brand new solid piece of meat. And they take these glued pieces of meat and sell them at a premium as though they're an actual fillet. It's really genius if you think about it. Take the scraps and sell them for a higher price than what you would sell the actual original cut for. So yeah, welcome to 21st century capitalism. They do this with beef, with pork, with chicken, because what transglutamase enzyme does is it bonds proteins to proteins. And it's an ingredient that's commonly found in chicken nuggets, sausage, chicken imitation crab, but it's also found in bread and cheese. So the USDA allows this ingredient in our food as long as it's listed on the label. Sometimes it's listed as TG enzyme, sometimes it's TGP, and sometimes it's just enzyme, as is the case with this package of English muffins, which also comes with a warning that I'll read to you right now. Warning: consuming this product can expose you to chemicals which are known to the state of California to cause cancer and birth defects or other reproductive harm. The FDA does not advise people to stop eating baked, toasted, or fried bakery products. So they're saying this food causes cancer, but we want you to eat it anyway. Sincerely, the U.S. government. Now, I wonder how many people helped craft that warning who also have ties to Big Pharma that's going to produce and sell all of the drugs to make us feel better after we have symptoms from eating poison. Now, meat glue and a number of other additives that can be found in U.S.-based products, just like this one, have been banned in the EU, but they're still legal in the United States. So, you know what they say. USA. USA, USA.
Remember that most of the things that we eat come from the USA. USA. Believe you me, it's a serious thing. Serious thing. Okay, here we go.
In this video, you'll learn about 3 unforgettable black historical figures that you were never taught in school, but helped in shaping global history in very significant ways. From discovering and leading a band of free slaves to forming a new settlement in a new land, to the tale of a woman demanding that her right be respected in a time when women were not regarded with any significance. What you'll learn shortly will blow your mind. Let's get right into it. Gaspar Yanga. Gaspar Yanga is popular as the Primer Libertador de America, or First Liberator of the Americas. He is notable for leading one of colonial Mexico's first successful slave uprisings, and would go on to establish one of America's earliest free black settlements. Gaspar, often called Yanga, or Yanga, was born on May 14, 1545. He is said to be one of the grand people from the royal lineage of Gabon, located in today's West Africa, where he was born and raised, before he was captured and sold into slavery in Mexico, and given the name Gaspar Yanga after his capture. Yanga was an enslaved worker in the sugarcane plantations of Veracruz, Mexico. While working under terrible conditions, in 1570, Yanga was able to convince some group of people, and with his group of new followers, revolted against their captors and were able to escape. They fled through the mountainous regions near Cordoba and established a settlement of former slaves called the Palanque. Yanga was able to bring the free slaves to a new settlement and established a community where they were able to live freely without any interference or disturbance from Spanish authorities for more than 40 years. Yanga assumed the role of spiritual and military leader and was able to structure an agricultural community that performed effectively and also produced in an ordered capacity. Under his leadership, the community easily grew in strength and was able to expand to other locations. Although there is no clear record of how this movement developed, by 1609, this community of former slaves included more than 500 men, and consequently, there were rumors that Yanga and his men were planning a large-scale revolt against the Spanish authorities. Yanga also had a band called the Cimarrones. While this group helped to ensure order and calm in the community, Yanga and his band were perceived as being a threat to the colonial system of slavery, as they acted in a daring manner and opposed activities of the royal commerce and authority. Indeed, Yanga and his men grew in power and influence and became a threat to the Spanish government. Warnings increased during the reign of Viceroy Luis de Velasco, and the Viceroy was alerted of a possible black uprising According to the rumors, this uprising would see the runaways murder whites and name a black maroon as king. De Velasco didn't give much attention to these rumors at first, but rather ordered the severe whipping of several enslaved people who had already been imprisoned for other kinds of crimes. After some period, the band was implicated in the disruption and looting of trade goods. Yenga's Maroon not only plundered the haciendas and farms in order to survive, they also attacked the Viceroyalty-era Mexico-Veracruz Road. This was along the Camino Road, also known as the Royal Road, which lies between Veracruz and Mexico City. It was an important road that connected the Gulf's main port with the capital of New Spain. The band was also held responsible for attacking nearby haciendas and kidnapping indigenous women. The continuous attacks became a source of trouble for the authorities. Throughout the colonial period, the roads where these attacks were prominent was the most used transit and communication route in the Americas, and its economic importance was essential for the development of Spain. The attacks got the viceroy upset, and he sent some militias to subdue Yanga and his group. Their community was eventually attacked, and they tried to destroy Yanga and his group. They assumed that destroying the community and its leader would serve as a deterrent to other would-be rebellious slaves, that the Spanish authority over them was absolute. However, the fugitives were able to defend themselves on several occasions. This was because their hiding places were difficult to access, and this allowed the Maroon to easily defend themselves. The rebellion was really fatal. The losses were high, and led to several further attacks on the Royal Road, which further destabilized the Viceregal economy. The Spanish authority eventually became helpless, as this clearly proved that waging a war against the Maroons was an unprofitable and hopeless enterprise. In 1609, there was news that the Africans intended to kill the inhabitants of the capital and crown Yanga as king. This really got the viceroy upset, and he quickly instructed the Spanish authorities to send a well-armed militia to defeat Yanga and his palanque. The troop of about 550 were led by Pedro Gonzalez de Herrera, and they marched out from Puebla. About 100 soldiers in the troops were regulars, while the rest were conscripts and adventurers. The Maroons, on the other hand, were an irregular force, with 100 fighters holding firearms and the other 400 armed with stones, machetes, bows, and arrows. At this time, Yanga was already old, so the troop was led by Francisco de la Matosa, an Angolan. Yanga was able to use his troop's superior knowledge of the terrain to resist the Spaniards. His goal was to cause the Spanish enough pain and draw them in for a negotiation. This strategy worked. As soon as the Spanish team approached, Yanga sent out his terms for peace via a captured Spaniard. He made a deal which was similar to that made between the Indians and Spaniards, which ended their hostility. The Indians requested for self-rule and agreed to support the Spaniards if they were never attacked. But the Spanish authorities were not ready to give up just yet. They sent another group to Yanga and his palanque, and they were faced with another strong defense from Yanga and his men. This time, both parties suffered severe casualties. After several other defeats, Yanga offered to make peace, but this time gave the Spaniards 11 conditions. Some of the most important conditions in his term was the recognition of the freedom of all of the palanque's residents prior to 1608, acknowledgement of the settlement as a legal entity, which Yanga and his descendants would govern, and the prohibition of any Spanish person in the community. And in turn, Yanga promised to serve and pay tribute to the Spanish crown. This took years of negotiations. Finally, in 1618, the treaty was signed, and the town of San Lorenzo de los Negros was officially recognized by Spanish authorities as a free black settlement. By 1630, the town of San Lorenzo de los Negros de Saralvo was established. The town is located in today's Veracruz province and is now known as Yanga. In 1871, about 50 years after Mexico gained their independence, Yanga was designated as a national hero of Mexico and also named the El Primer Libertador de las Americas. Much of the story of Yanga was collected and published in an anthology in 1870 by Vicente Riva Palacio. He characterized the Maroons of San Lorenzo de los Negros as proud men who would not be defeated. Defined by the activities of the male Spanish conquistadors and governors, whose names mark several streets and cities like Coronado, Peralta, de Vargas, The efforts of these men brought families of soldiers to settle in areas now called New Spain. Their efforts was to get back lands originally occupied by indigenous Pueblo peoples since the 13th century. There are so many documented horrors inflicted on the Pueblo people during the claim of their land by the Spanish. The victory over the Pueblo people are celebrated during the Entrada and other fiestas. However, while this happened, one woman was challenging the effort of the Spanish authority to affirm the survival of Catholicism and Spanish bloodlines while suppressing other faiths and ethnicities. You may have heard of the heroic stories of black women freedom fighters like Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, and Mary Ann Shadd. You've been taught the history of black women fighting for freedom. However, you may not know that women have been revolting against oppression as far back as the 16th century with the effort of black women like Isabel de Olvera. Isabel Olvera was one of these women. In fact, she was at the forefront of it. Isabel was a free woman of African descent. She lived in Querétaro, Mexico, and joined a relief expedition, traveling on the Guerra de Reza expedition to Santa Fe. The mission of the expedition was to strengthen the Spanish claim to the colonized province of Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico. During this period, she will travel as a servant to a Spanish woman. Although there is just very little story about her that is known, her impact and commitment to the liberation of enslaved African Americans remains a remarkable influence in Black history. She is well known for an extraordinary deposition that she filed with the mayor of Querétaro, Don Pedro Lorenzo de Castilla. She stood before 3 witnesses, a free black man, a mestiza woman, and a black slave woman, and dictated the following. I'm going on the expedition to New Mexico and have some reason to fear that I may be annoyed by some individual since I am a mulatta, and it is proper to protect my rights in such an eventuality by an affidavit showing that I am a free woman, unmarried, and the legitimate daughter of Hernando, a Negro, and an Indian named Magdalena. I therefore request your grace to accept this affidavit, which shows that I am free and not bound by marriage or slavery. I request that a properly certified and signed copy be given to me in order to protect my rights, and that it carry full legal authority. I demand justice. Although there is no clear record that Olvera's deposition may have protected her freedom during such a movement, the document somehow made its way into Spanish colonial archives. The document became a strong symbol of women and showcased Isabel's understanding of personal freedom. Olvera knew that her cherished freedom could be restricted in 2 ways. One was through slavery, and the other way was in marriage. With the cross-cultural and competitive histories of the colonizers of the African American continents, it's quite amazing that the expressed sentiments of a black woman survives until this day. Isabel's affidavit remains a legal document in the historical archives of 2 countries in both Mexico and the United States. It remains the oldest recorded example found of a black woman speaking up for herself. Although her journey started in Mexico, she deemed the document necessary for her travel to New Mexico. She demanded justice and respect for her existence, singleness, freedom, and future. What makes Isabel a more phenomenal woman was how she was able to understand the concept of freedom as a woman in a time when women had very little liberty. Not to mention that she was a black woman with a mixed racial heritage. The confidence embedded in her statement remains inspirational, and her character and determination would help lift the voices and strengthen the resolve of so many other freedom fighters. Isabel made her freedom a priority, and in Querétaro, her freedoms were a matter of public knowledge. The 3 witnesses also verified that Isabel de Olvera was an unmarried mulatto woman of free status. While she was scared that her freedom may be challenged as she moved up north, she still went on the journey, even though she knew that she may be annoyed by some individual, as she called it, on her expedition to New Mexico. Her powerful words still remain relevant even in our world today, as we live in a time when certain rights and liberties of women are being constantly threatened and trifled. It wasn't out of place that her rights would be trampled on while traveling with 73 soldiers. They took several items, such as food, livestock, and other supplies including nails, medicine, boots, powder, silver daggers, silk hats, linen shirts, and 8 dread bars of soap. Many scholars suggest that her statement was made to ensure that she was protected from advances from soldiers while they traveled. The stories about what happened to Olvera upon her arrival in New Mexico, her writing provided an understanding of women of that time, as the main records we have of black and mulatto women from this period come from church documentation of marriages, baptisms, and burials, and from court cases regarding witchcraft. Historians suggest that women of color in New Mexico sought power over their precarious situations and often abusive husbands by drawing on the help of local curanderas and medicine women. This resulted in the women being accused of practicing witchcraft. Others, like Isabel, appealed to governing bodies for protection of their status as free women. The significance of de Oliveira's statement is an incredible explication of a black woman's attempt to navigate a patriarchal and Spanish-dominated system that was designed to keep women powerless. Oliveira exemplifies the ongoing intermixing of indigenous American African peoples, the construction of race in colonial North America, and the presence of black women in New Mexico from its earliest written records. Portuguese-controlled Moroccan town of Azamor, right on the Atlantic coast. It was sold to a Spanish nobleman, Andrés Durantes de Carranza. The nature of slave trade in Spain was quite different from what was seen in the transatlantic slave trade. In Spain, the slaves had several paths to freedom. It is not clear whether Azamori was raised as a Muslim in Morocco, but he must have definitely converted to Christianity. This is because the Spanish Empire at the time didn't allow non-Catholics to travel to New Spain, so he must have converted to Catholicism before he was allowed to be a part of the expedition. He was given the Christian name Esteban, which is Spanish for Stephen, after his baptism. Estevanico was part of the Narvaez expedition with some other 300 men. The expedition was led by the newly appointed governor of La Florida, Panfilo de Narvaez. They left Cuba in February 1528 on a mission to go to Isla de las Palmas, near present-day Tampico, Mexico. They planned to establish new settlements in that region. However, strong winds forced them to the western coast of Florida. The fleet fortunately landed in present-day St. Petersburg, Florida, on the shores of Boca Ciega Bay. Narvaez was dissatisfied and ordered his ships with 100 men and 10 women to sail north in search of a large harbor, which he was assured was nearby. He then led another 300 men with 42 horses and moved along the coast with hopes of rejoining with his ships at the large harbor. Unfortunately, there was no border north of Boca Ciega Bay, and Narvaez never saw his ships again. The group later marched 300 miles north and got into an armed confrontation with the Native Americans. The survivors built boats to sail westward along the Gulf Coast shoreline with hopes of reaching Pianuco and the Rio de las Palmas. Unfortunately, they faced a storm when they were near Galveston Island, Texas. Just 80 men out of the 300 survived the storm and were washed ashore at Galveston Island. In 1529, Estevanico and 2 other survivors from one boat became enslaved by Coalitican Indians. In 1532, they were reunited with a survivor from another boat, and the 4 survivors spent years as slaves on the Texas Barrier Islands. In 1534, Estevanico and other 3 survivors, Andrés Durantes de Carranza, Alonso del Castillo Maldonado, and Cabeza de Vaca, finally escaped their captivity and traveled west into present-day Texas in southwestern U.S. and northern Mexico. They became medicine men. As medicine men, they served as traditional healers and spiritual leaders, serving the indigenous people of the Americas. They became the first Europeans and Africans to enter the American West. They walked a total of 2,000 miles after landing in Florida and finally reached the Spanish settlement in Sinaloa. After some time, they left there and traveled 1,000 miles to the south to Mexico City. Traveling as medicine men, Estevanico and his other 3 companions were welcomed and treated with great respect. They were offered food, shelter, and gifts from different villages, who also held celebrations in their honor. They moved from one village to another, and oftentimes followed by more than 3,000 people. Estevanico and his other 3 companions traveled through different parts of the continent and western Mexico, into the Sonoran Desert, to the region of Sonora in New Spain, which is present-day Mexico. After finding a small Spanish settlement, the 4 survivors traveled 1,000 miles to the south of Mexico City and arrived in July 1536. In 1542, Cabeza de Vaca published the Relación, a book that chronicled their 8 years survival journey and also detailed the life of Estevanico. It was reprinted in 1555 and became the first published book to describe the people, wildlife, flora, and fauna of inland North America, and was also the first to describe the American bison. In the book, Cabeza de Vaca often referred to Estevanico as their leader, as he went ahead of the other 3 survivors. He had learned some parts of the indigenous language and was able to interact with them. When Estevanico arrived in Mexico City, Antonio de Mendoza, who was the viceroy of New Spain, appointed him as the guide in expeditions to the north. In 1539, Estevanico left Mexico City and traveled to Sinaloa. There, he accompanied Friar Marcos de Niza as the guide in search of the fabled 7 cities of Cibola, preceding Coronado by a year. Estevanico was also appointed by the viceroy of New Spain in 1539 to serve as the main guide for a return expedition to the southwest, led by Fray Marcos de Niza. He went ahead of the main team with another group of Sonoran Indians. During this period, he was instructed to communicate back to the main party by sending crosses. It was agreed that the size of the cross should be equal to the wealth discovered. One day, a cross arrived that was as tall as a person, and this caused Niza and his main party to step up their pace in order to join the scouts. This happened when Estevanico reached the village of Huahuica, which is in present-day New Mexico. Sadly, this was where Estevanico met his end. Marcos de Niza reported in his own accounts that Estevanico was killed in the pueblo of Huahuica in 1539. Estevanico became the first non-native to visit Pueblo lands. There is no clear record of the cause or manner of Estevanico's death, and there may never be any. All of the stories of his death are based on legend and speculation. Some historians have also narrated that he was killed because the Zuni did not believe that he was a representative of the European party. Others speculate that he was killed for demanding turquoise and women. Another account said that because Esteban wore owl feathers and carried a medicine man's gourd, the Zuni people may have thought that he was impersonating a medicine man, which made them kill him. A different account in 2002 by Francisco Mara suggested that the Zuni did not kill Estevanico, but rather he and his friends remained among the Ashui people, who probably helped him fake his death so he could regain his freedom. Some folklore even say that the Kachina figure, Chacuena, is based on Estevanico. However, both in historical and modern depictions, Estevanico is shown as a great explorer, a physical and moral guide, and a conquistador. If you found this video valuable, we're just scratching the surface with our history. The video on the screen shares some more Black history.
Yes. Some things where you might not have heard before. We just present it to you. Did you know that Mexico was part of, I would want to say America was part of Mexico, and Mexico was a part of America, but Mexico was America too. Or America was Mexico too. In parts of Texas and all these places was Mexico. And as usual, white people come thief the land. You know, that is why them talk Spanish, because the Spaniards them did there. And now we say Mexicans are aliens. Aliens. And now we hear that them want to make Canada aliens or the citizens of America. That's what they call colonialism. That is how colonialism happening now. For those of us who don't know how people become slaves to another country, or how another country colonize other countries, what is happening now between Canada and America, or I should say between Trump and Canada, is directly related to colonialism. Where annex a man country and claims to the borders. You see, he want to move the borders them. That is really where he means to move the borders them. And that is really where really Trump wants to do, to say Canada is really America. Serious thing. And him did it in with Greenland too. Anyway, the time is 12 o'clock. Right now, to pay tribute to a brother named Calvin Scott. If you hear the name Calvin Scott, you might not know what we're talking about, but the Virgin passed away in Florida. We know him as Coco. Yeah, man. I mean, the Virgin have so much hits, pantapa hits. So, in our little way, we want to pay tribute to Coco. We're going to start out with a tune where we write. When I say we write, I mean MUTABARUKA. Speaking in the third person, MUTABARUKA wrote a poem named Bone Lie. And on that recording, you had Freddie McGregor, you have Dennis Brown, and you have Coco. So we want to play it. Phone call, but as we have said, we have paid tribute to the great one, Coco. We want to play a tune that was a big hit in England, and it was done by OMT 4, for those of you who know OMT, and Shabba Ranks with Coco. Big hit. May I tell you, The pirate station, them in Jamaica, sorry, the pirate station, them in England, rinse that one, and like, whoa.
People station.
Shabara. I see him, she that take me to, you know. She that take me to Coco, yeah. Big tune them, in a them time there. Them tune, yeah, will make these people, these artists be immortal. Yeah, man. Because this can't go away from me, you know. This can't leave you again, you know. It's indelible now. No care what kind of technology come, you know. Them pass it on to the next technology. Remember I said it was record, you know, and cassette, and dot, and CD. See, man, them start print back record again. Them voice here will always be heard anywhere Jamaican music play. It's great thing, man. Great thing. Give thanks to science and technology again. You know one, yeah. Man say, where you get that tune from? Yes. Call him Calvin Scott. Calvin Scott go make a tune about a well-known virgin who they are prisoner now, named Zeeks. Known as Coco T. Here we go. We know nobody else play it. Maybe I'm wrong, but not even a radio station, I don't hear nobody else play it. And the tune don't know about the night. Or what them call gun lyrics or not. It's just a tune where deal with it's a social commentary. So I don't understand why nobody know want to play it except me, but I guess that's how it go. So here I want to know. We have played the Virgin Gone, but as we say, the tune them live on and nobody can stop the music. Can't stop it, no matter what them do. Here we go. I don't know if it's the last tune him release or the last tune him record. Because I know that some man record music and hear it released for a long like a while, but I don't remember no tune after that tune, yeah. I don't remember none, but somebody can call me and tell me.
RFM, #1.
We started out the first 2 hours playing some clips about different subjects, but subjects that relate to where we are dealing with, and where the people them are dealing with, and where the people them don't know. But we use the program all the while to bring them attention to these things. And then the next 2 hours from 12 o'clock, we've been playing Coco T. You know, Coco T passed away 11th and 11th of March. Yes, in passed away. And we have been paying tribute to Coco T. So we give thanks to the moment and the time and the energy. Give thanks to all the ones them who stay with me. You know, you nobody call. I them no want dropping at the middle of the music because they want to hear Coco T. So we'll be back here a little more from this, from 2 o'clock to 5:45 with the stepping razor, the art of war. We continue. We continue the time we have. A Coco T still, you know, Coco T still, yes.